Hello, my name is Professor Shaunak Roy. I am presently engaged as an assistant professor of management studies at St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, Kolkata. I'd like to talk to you about the concept of branding and why is it so important in today's context, in today's pandemic situation that we are all involved in some way or the other. So, what exactly is branding? Let's discuss that first and then let's move on to what is its relevance in this pandemic stricken world. A brand today is not just about that logo, it's not just about that symbol, maybe not that slogan or that little identity that you create. It's not just about that. It's much more than that. It's in fact what you place in the mind of the customer. In other words, branding is not something that originates probably from the marketing side, from the marketer's side, but something that originates from the side of the customers. How do customers perceive your brand? Why is a brand X preferred over brand Y? Is the reason why branding is so important, and it is something that will be studied for such a long period of time. The next logical question, therefore, is if branding is something that originates in the mind of the customer, how is the concept of branding going to work out in the pandemic situation? There is no doubt about the fact that the pandemic has uprooted a lot of strategies that have been planned out by several marketers in a long period of time, over a long period of time that way. But yet, marketers have to find their way out and move through the new normal. So there have been companies like Seat Tires, for example, with all the lockdowns and what we've seen for so many days and so many months. Company like Seat Tires could have easily stopped its business. But the company decided to move forward and it made its brave foray in the PPE kit market, thereby reminding customers that look, we are still in business. The objective was not to make a quick buck. The objective was not to make quick profits, but keep implanting this message in the mind of the customer. This is where we are. Nike was quick to respond. Nike, a very, very prominent global brand, was quick to respond with its PPE kits, face wear, and quickly transform this PPE market, which was largely generic in nature, into a branded concept all of a sudden. Now, all of a sudden, people wanted to wear Nike masks. People wanted to wear Nike gloves for all that you'd care. So, this is how important branding has become in today's context. In many cases, brands made several mistakes, and mind you, these are some of the prominent brands. Companies like Coca-Cola, for that matter. Companies like Coca-Cola decided to cut down on their advertising budgets because they thought they were simply great enough for it. And since they did not fill in the void, this gap, this aperture was filled in by its rival company, a company like PepsiCo. Similarly, there are other companies as well which decided to compromise on their advertising budgets. And they decided that their brand would probably speak for them. But the major part that they forgot about was the fact that a brand is something that needs to be constantly reminded about. You need to remind the customers about this particular brand from time to time. Reinforce the message in the mind of the customer so as to ensure what is called top of the mind recall. Why else would you have a company like Nescafe? Whenever we talk about coffee, the first brand that comes to our mind is probably, or probably any of our minds is probably Nescafe. But yet, here is a company which spends or shells out so much of its advertising budget on those brilliant little campaigns to remind customers that the next time when you're thinking about coffee, think about Nescafe. Forget about the word coffee. Remember the word Nescafe. So it's important that in a pandemic situation that you do not cut down on your advertising budgets significantly, but rather communicate with your customers, share those stories with your customers. That is the key to surviving through the pandemic. The most successful companies are those that have shared stories with their customers successfully and they have maintained a very, very strong brand personality, a very strong identity for themselves. And that is what has led them forward. These have been the successful companies because customers will want to talk about them. Here's a company like Dettol for that matter. Dettol as a company could not cope up with its sales. And yet you have other companies now entering this particular space because they want a slice of action. because they have realized the problem with this company, a company which is known in the antiseptic market, which has replaced the word antiseptic with the word Dettol. And other companies have realized that there's an aperture out here, there's a gap out here. The companies want to fill this void. And that is why you probably have a Dabur and a league of other local players which want to enter the antiseptic market because they have identified there is a definite space out here, thereby making brands ubiquitous. So no brand is immortal, no brand can survive for eternity. You need to keep hammering this in the mind of the customer. And that is what makes branding such an interesting topic, such an interesting avenue of research. And it will continue to remain so in the times immemorial. Having said that, I wish that the pandemic gets over as quickly as possible and brands are able to resume their operations that they were engaged in previously, and we are able to get back to a normal course of our lives in a very short period of time. Thank you very much. Have a nice